Welcome, warriors, with skin as melanated as the day is long. You are now tuned in to the Crossroads, where sustainability meets social justice, knowledge is power, and we are breaking down stereotypes, one episode at a time. Welcome to the Crossroads.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Crossroads. I am your host, Rashida Green, and this is the show for and about environmental justice and those who fight the fight. Skin as melanated as the days are long. Knowledge is power, and we are breaking down stereotypes one episode at a time. I am joined today by an amazing young lady, Shauri Naidoo, who is a New Zealand resident and also a student who is here today to talk to me about her company, Moraka Menstrual Cups. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad to be here and to be able to talk about environmental justice.
So the way we like to get the show started is by giving flowers. This is the part in the show where we honor someone either in our lives or perhaps not, who has inspired us. I can go first if that's fine with you. Yeah. And actually, I'm going to give flowers to Dr. Beverly Wright. She is one of the OGs of environmental justice in the US. And so since we're talking about women's issues, I thought that would just be very appropriate to honor someone who is a woman and a pioneer in this fight. How about you?
I'd love to give flowers just something a little bit more to someone a little bit closer to home. I'd love to acknowledge my parents and how much they've supported me on my journey of working with so many amazing individuals and running a menstrual cup business. I think the messages and the messages I receive from them, the amount of support is fantastic. And I'd just like to acknowledge their support.
Yes, that's really amazing. So the beautiful part about all of this is you are in fact still a college student. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I'm just in my first year, like we call it university because college is high school in New Zealand.
Oh.
I'm just in I know when I went to the States, people were super confused. I'm in my first year of university at Victoria University in Wellington, and I'm studying politics and criminology.
Wow. What prompted you to get into this major?
Oh, yeah, I just love politics. I love theoretical politics. I absolutely love history. And I initially wasn't going to do criminology, but I changed to it when I became fascinated with the reasons why crime is committed and the theories behind it. And that's something that really struck my interest. And I think that's just grown because I'm halfway through my university year. So, I'm just so interested in learning about the sociological factors and the psychological factors that influence criminal behavior. Why do we have certain things that define crime? Or certain behavior that defines crime.
That's really interesting. And I let's put a pin in that. I would love to come back and talk about that a little bit more. But I want to talk about your business because you are the CEO of Moraka Menstrual Cups. Can you please talk about what prompted you to start up this business?
So in New Zealand, we have this organization called the Young Enterprise Scheme. So they have a curriculum for business studies in high school where they get students to start their own business. So I started my business when I was 16 years old. I wanted to start a business that had a long-term impact, that could help a lot of people. So I was thinking of a conversation I had with my mum a number of years ago, and she wanted to start a menstrual cup business, but she didn't feel it was the right time. So I thought to that moment, and I thought, we're in an era where people are beginning to embrace new period products. We're in an era of embracing eco-friendly products. So I started to dig deeper into period products and eco-friendly, sustainable period products. And I began to look at its surface level, and I discovered that period products, existing options, were very expensive. So the average period product, specifically menstrual cup, ranges from 30 to 90 New Zealand dollars, which I felt was quite unattainable for middle to lower income users. And then I started to dig even deeper, and I found that pads and tampons, disposable products, were a serious environmental issue.
Yes.
Right. The average user uses 500 period pads and tampons make up 5,000 tons of landfill. right? If you could, the amount of disposable products we use in New Zealand could pretty much go around the globe. So if you think about the impact of that, pads and tampons are 90% plastic. And then I started to dig even deeper, and I looked into the sociological factors of starting my business. And I discovered that I looked into period poverty, which describes the circumstances of not affording period products, right? So we have very much a dilemma. We want everyone to have the right to have a period with dignity. That is a basic human right.
Yes.
But at the same time, we want to have sustainable products, but people can't afford that. It's inaccessible. So I decided to sell affordable, sustainable, and cost-effective menstrual cups. Through that, as a platform, I would try to break the stigma of menstruation and really address period poverty in a society, specifically in New Zealand, which is quite a big issue, with 1 in every 5 New Zealanders suffering from period poverty. And I can imagine that's a much bigger number in the United States. And that's something that we really need to address on a global stage, why people are unable to afford period products.
Yes. I completely 100% agree. And some of the other things that we have also found as we've transitioned, because there's so many things that are ways that I was taught. I'm a little older than you. So things that I learned about menstrual health, even cleanliness has changed.
Exactly.
My parents, or my mother actually, was a fan of using the douche, which I mean, my God, I mean, it's basically just, as far as I'm concerned, taking I don't want to say lighter fluid, but in essence, just not just depriving your body of its natural balance, natural pH with this artificial product, which is no different, as we've talked about with periods. And then that there's differences between the quality of products that folks are able to access. It's just really crazy. And speaking of criminology, we also know that, especially here in the States, that there's limited access given to menstrual products in prisons. Like women have a lot of troubles and issues with that. So you've created this opportunity for access. What are some of the challenges and things that you've encountered so far in this process of starting your business?
One of the challenges I've faced is people are still quite reluctant to change to menstrual cups. And I do understand where that comes from. But I think that if you become open to the idea of using menstrual cups, so if you go back to the benefits, right, our menstrual cups last 10 years, think about the environmental impact you're making. Our cups are 4 to 8, you don't have to change it for 4 to 8 hours. So just think about the time that you have within that. You've got other things to do than constantly change your disposable products. Our material is biodegradable. So medical grade silicone is a biodegradable product. It's compact, it's convenient, it makes your period feel shorter. And I think I definitely understand why people are reluctant. But if we go back to why people should use menstrual cup, I think the challenges would sort of cease in a way. I think another challenge I've faced is, it can be a really hard business to get into because, people don't want to address these topics. People don't want to talk about periods because it is in itself a taboo subject. And I think that's something we need to stamp out, because I think in order to address the issues of period poverty, we need to stop seeing menstruation as such a taboo or dirty, and that in quotations thing, because it's a normal bodily function, and that's what it is.
Yes. And do you think that in addition to the challenge to change the stigma, do you also find that you've had issues being a woman of color, having access to programs that could possibly support you as you're creating your business and things of that nature?
See, I'm quite new into my business, but I think because I've really tried to contact a lot of news organizations, I've really tried to contact local television shows, and I'm like, this is an issue that we need to talk about, and they don't want to have me on. So I get responses like, oh, we've had period activists on the TV, we've had them on social media. Like, I'm not just a period positivity activist. I'm someone that's trying to promote menstrual cups as an affordable option, a sustainable and affordable option. And I do think a part of it stems from me being a woman of color. And I think that's where Moraka comes in, because I'm a very proud feminist. I run the feminist organization at my university. I'm the president. And I just think, we need to address these issues. We need to go into intersectional feminism, right? And I think we also need to address the biases that we have, that we're still reluctant to see women of color leadership roles and media roles. I'd love to see more women of color activists being more publicly shown.
I
And I think,
completely agree.
yeah, we all need these platforms. It does get frustrating at times when people don't want to hear what you have to say.
Mhm.
But I guess I'm optimistic in that people are starting to listen. Like, I mean, you're interviewing me, which is amazing, right? But I do like to hold optimism.
It's important. It's very funny. I was interviewing someone else and we were just talking about what the major issues that we need to address right now when we're talking about climate action. We were just talking about carbon net neutrality, things of that nature, but also really some of the issues of shifting as what you are describing, the shift into a clean economy, shifting
Yeah.
into more things that are sustainable, and we're actually putting the environment first. Now, I would like to know, just from your perspective, what do you think the hesitation is, aside from just period positivity and just like the stigmas in general? What do you think is the major barrier that prevents people from making better decisions or better choices about not only their own personal health, which things like the chemicals in menstrual pads contribute to, but just like the overall health of the environment too? What is your perspective on that?
I would think that it's such a new product. People think it's quite an invasive product when actually it's not. Yeah, that's that misconception. People are still reluctant to try tampons. Why would they try menstrual cups? I think that's all good. I think it's that definitely people just in general don't want to try new things. We get into a habit of, we've got pads and tampons, why do we need to try something new? And I think it's that not human nature as such, is that people tend to be, my interests are being taken care of.
Right.
Why would I help the planet? I think menstrual cups help the planet as well as helping you. Right? I think we need to it makes your period more convenient. You've got a compact product. It's right there. You don't need to change it for 10 years. That's as convenient as it gets. Saves you money. It saves the environment. But I think you have the small product, this menstrual cup. I've actually got it here.
Let me see.
Yeah, I'll just take it out. We've got the small product, right? It's all it is. It's 20 New Zealand dollars. And I think you have the power in your hands to change the environment. Just think of it like that. And I think people need to think of it from a different perspective, right? Instead of it thinking of this really scary thing, like, this is not scary, like it's just the myth. Yeah, people do get intimidated by the idea, and that does stem from the taboo of menstruation. But I think if you think of it from a different perspective, and that your individual actions can make such an impact, I think it would make a lot more of a difference for people wanting to switch from disposable products, if that's the choice you make, to reusable options.
I just want to honor the fact that for a young person, you are exemplifying exactly what many folks before you, and also a lot of the children and adults of your generation, are working to do, which is to really affect change, because you didn't quite get the best version of Earth. So, yeah, I mean, and actually, that's another question to ask. What do you feel, as you've been growing up in this world? Do you feel a sense of fear? What is your feeling when you think about the challenges that we face when it relates to the environment? How does that make you feel?
I feel as though in terms of governments, could be doing a lot more in terms of how to counter climate change, because I think this is a serious issue. But I do also acknowledge that individuals are also not to blame for environmental issues. I think individuals could do more. Just using eco-friendly products. But I also acknowledge that we need to work on big corporations and organizations that are contributing to waste in the environment, to pollution, to carbon emissions. And I think that's something that we need to address. And I think governments need to do more. I acknowledge that in New Zealand, we're in quite a privileged place. The government, our New Zealand government's doing quite a bit to with ban plastic bags, where the government's given $50 million to cut down plastic waste. But I still think there is a lot more we could do. And I still think there's that reluctance to talk about corporations and big organizations using waste.
And oh, keep going. Sorry.
Oh, no, you go.
I was just going to say, I think we've come to the crossroads, which is the part in the show where we just bring everything together. And a way that I want to do that at first is really just to ask you, what do you think? I know that New Zealand is pretty much the coolest place to live. Let's start. Let's go down the list. It's gorgeous. Lucy Lawless, who I am obsessed with. I don't know if you know who that is. She is just the bee's knees to me. So you've got so many things going for you in New Zealand, but what do you think are some of the major challenges that New Zealand has yet to tackle, and maybe how those issues are also some of the ones that we're seeing in the world as well?
I think while our government's doing quite a bit to counter climate action, I do think they could do more in terms of what I personally think is that they could do more with plastic bottles, right? That's something that, it's like a huge issue. Plastic bottles are like the forefront of environmentalism. And I think the government could do more to tackle waste. Like, to me, 50 million is not enough, I think. I think it could be a little bit more in terms of New Zealand has this green and eco-friendly image. I think we also need to address the amount of waste we don't actually notice in terms of food waste. So our government has done this recycling scheme at the moment. I personally don't think it's sustainable enough because we have like three, it's been a while since I've gone back home. But it's like 3 bins. You have to put your recycling in one bin. People can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's kind of a bit hard for people to do that because you can't have liners in your bin, right?
Like a trash can, like a trash bag liner. Okay.
Yes, you can't even use a biodegradable one. And I personally think that's not going to last long. Yeah, so I think they're going too, I don't think they've really consulted the public. And I think while we have to do environmentalism, I think we need to be realistic with the everyday person.
Yes.
Everyday person is extremely busy. Some people have families, some people have really busy jobs. And I think when we make something too inaccessible, people go, oh, well, we can't do it now. Oh, stuff the environment. This is too hard. Oh, maybe pessimistic people be like, oh, we're going to die in a few years. But I think, I think we could do more with public consultation because I do think the average person is really interested in helping the environment and doing their bit. I just personally think there should be more awareness about the impact of the environment and what we can do as individuals, because corporations are out of our hands and which the government needs to sort out on their part. But I think as individuals, we can do so much. And I think that's where Menstrual Cup comes in as well. I think that's where our Moraka Menstrual Cup comes in, that you can make this change and you have such an impact on on the environment.
And something that you said that is so important that I also want to highlight is that we in the US are having the same issues where it is very challenging to really know and understand recycling, what can be recycled. There is so much more emphasis on recycling, not reducing or reusing. And the issue with recycling is that it still, unfortunately, puts a lot of the onus and responsibility on the individual. And there's so many things like you were mentioning that you can't do. For example, styrofoam. Not every plant takes or accepts styrofoam. People don't read the little symbols that tell you, oh, this is this and this is that. So you can put it in the commingled. And most people are not trying to do that. They're not going to take the time to stand in the garbage and be like, well, like no one's going to do that, and so and most people would just opt to throw it away. And bringing it back around when we're talking about menstruation and the waste that attributes. I think the stats are like the average menstruator is throwing away thousands of tons of waste in their lifetime.
Yeah, because in that 10-year ban, an average user uses 2,400 pads and tampons, which is immense. Actually, and they throw away 125 to 150 kilograms of waste. If you think about it in terms of a statistical analysis, that's huge.
That's enormous.
And just speaking on the US, I was reading something yesterday, and in the US alone, 12 billion pads and 7 billion tampons are thrown away each year. So if you think about that in terms of even if the benefits don't sway you in changing, just think about how much waste pads and tampons are. And I mean, because we throw it away, right? We forget about it, we throw it away. We don't count how many disposable products we use in our cycle. And if you think about it from that number, I think it really makes you think
I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, it just makes you contemplate, can I make a switch,
Yes.
right? Is it something that's a viable thing for both me and the environment?
Does Moraka have a specific meaning?
Yeah, Morocco means freedom of body and expression. And that's how I want people to feel when they use a menstrual cup, unconstrained by societal standards of what menstruation means or the taboo associated with it. And I think it also has a feminist undertone, right? Because as I was saying before, I'm a really big feminist. I really enjoy learning and seeking out the ideology of feminism. And I think we need to acknowledge that, using a menstrual cup's a choice. And I think that really embracing your, really having a good relationship and acknowledging that periods are a normal bodily function is almost like a principle of feminism. Just acknowledging that something's normal, a normal thing that happens to, a woman, and yeah, we can embrace it. But I understand that you can't always love your period. Like I know
I
that
don't like mine. She kind of gets on my nerves.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, like we can't always have this magical relationship where we're dancing and singing on our period. But I think that we should all have the right to have your period with dignity, and especially have access to sustainable products, because we can't ask people to use menstrual cup and then charge $90 for it.
Yes.
To me that's unacceptable. If you're not making a lot of money, if you're a student like myself, who's going to spend that? I don't see myself as a student spending that.
Not when you're spending it on beer. I mean, not beer. Don't tell your parents she's not drinking beer.
I'm not drinking beer. Absolutely promise.
I'm just kidding. I don't know if you.
I'm not a big drinker, but I do like once in a while.
Yeah, listen. I was in college once upon a time. I understand.
Yeah.
I'm not here to
you
judge
definitely
you.
understand.
I completely understand. Where do you see Moraka in 5 years, in 10 years? If I didn't tell you, this is such an major accomplishment, what you've been able to do.
Oh, thank you.
And so the saying is the pinnacle of any mountain is the base of another one. So what's the next goal for you?
Mm-hmm. I would really love to see my menstrual cups, Moraka Menstrual Cups in supermarkets, because I think at the moment we have about 2 options. The first, all of them being $50, right? And I don't see people buying a $50 menstrual cup from the supermarket.
No.
No, definitely not. I as a CEO of a menstrual cup company, no. I would love to donate more cups to NGOs and organizations in New Zealand. We have family planning here that works on contraceptives. I can't remember what it's called in the US.
Planned Parenthood. They're
that's it. It's the equivalent of that.
But yeah, okay.
Yeah, Planned Parenthood, like family planning in New Zealand. They were really interested in having period products, but there is not a lot of funding for them. I'd love to work with more women's shelters and homeless shelters. I think that's a serious issue that affects people who can't afford products, especially people who are struggling with housing, struggling to access resources. And I would, at the end of the day, I'd love to donate over 4,500 cups to these organizations, because I'm reaching people that really need it. Yeah, and I think the ultimate goal was to go overseas, reach people. When I went to California, I really wanted to sell there, but then COVID happened.
Yeah.
But I think, when I went to California, I thought people in California would really embrace period products.
They will 100% embrace it.
They will 100% embrace it, because I was speaking to someone in California and they were like, oh, we would love to have sustainable products here, but we don't actually know where to go. And I think people would love to have a New Zealand menstrual cup brand to associate themselves with the New Zealand image. Yeah, and I'd love to. Yeah, I think so. I see it because I see a lot of our New Zealand brands in the United States.
I mean, aside from the beautiful Indigenous culture that is completely 100% embraced, you have Xena Warrior Princess as your mascot.
We do also have Lord of the Rings. So in case you're into that, I'm done. I'm kind of close. I'm walking distance to the studios, like Weta Digital. Yeah, I'm right. Like Peter Jackson's from Wellington. I study here. I know it kind of seems far-fetched. Like it's quite a popular. Like he's from here. I'm pretty sure he studied in my university. I'm pretty
Nerding
sure.
out.
Yeah. So what else do we have in New Zealand? Did you? I'm a fan. I'm assuming because you're a fan of Lucy Lawless, you watch Spartacus.
Yes, I didn't fully commit to Spartacus because it was kind of not my bag. I picked her back up on Evil Dead, Ash versus the Evil Dead, and all that. But
Yeah,
yes, I did. I did
that
watch
was
a little bit
from
of Spartacus.
like Spartacus was filmed in New Zealand, but not in Wellington and Auckland.
I
I'm thinking
just,
you should come. Have you been to New Zealand before? You gotta come. Yeah, I think you'll love it.
I think I will. I really think I will. Okay, we cannot get sidetracked because I will go off on some long Lucy Lawless tangent, and everybody needs it, but we don't need it because I want
Yeah.
to focus. So actually, another question that I did want to ask you, because you said that there was a program that you entered that basically taught you how to open a business. Is that correct?
Yeah, in high school, the Young Enterprise Scheme.
To my knowledge, there is nothing like that. And people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have not heard of any kind of program like that offered in
Mm,
schools. And
yeah.
to hear you say that and to know that, you're obviously, a young person it's amazing, but it's concerning because everyone needs to have a program like this. My question really to you is, what are some of the major lessons that you've had to learn as you've been building your business? How is the program that you had access to prepare you for some of the things that you're encountering now?
The Young Enterprise Scheme really prepared us on how to run a business. So we'd have to do annual reviews, we'd have to do market research, we'd have to do pitches to judges, right? This is all the stages you go through if you're a startup business, right? I think those skills are invaluable. And you don't actually need to, some people assume that you need to go to university to get these skills,
Mhm.
but sometimes, you don't have to have a business degree to run a business. And I just think it's given me so much opportunities in terms of networking, how to conduct myself professionally, public speaking skills, because through you pitching your idea, you really build up those skills, and communication skills, because I myself am quite introverted, really brought me out of my comfort zone to know that I have the ability to be an entrepreneur, to be innovative, because I think schools at the end of the day follow this really monotonous schedule of, okay, so it's barely really based on marks, right?
Yes.
That idea of end result. And I don't think that's how life works. It's more about, I know it sounds a bit cliche, but
No, it's
kind
not.
of more about the journey than the destination.
Mhm.
And I think that's what running a business teaches me, that it's all in steps. We've got to learn through those steps in order to achieve a goal. And we
Yes.
may never even reach that goal, and that goal might change. But I think, it really teaches students. We're always talking about how students need to be more creative in schools and how we need to embrace our innovative side. And I think the Young Enterprise Scheme really helped me embrace that, helped me embrace how, my activism side. It helped me embrace my innovative, helped me embrace my entrepreneurial side. And I think every student should have access to this, right? Because school, at the end of the day, life doesn't work with just getting a mark and then, you're off to university. And
Right.
why should we wait until we're in our late 20s to have these opportunities? There are plenty of students that have this side of this creative side that's wanting to burst out and do something new. I think everyone should have access to that.
I completely agree with you. I'm glad to know that there are programs like that, but I'm sad also because I would love for them to be in the US, because as we're talking about education, we know that especially here in the US, that we have the school to prison pipeline, and that when folks are not given appropriate access to the education that they need, also the support that they need at home, they are going to get caught up in the trap. All it takes is a couple of school suspensions, and then you're off to juvenile detention. This brings into the conversation your pursuit, of criminology and wanting to understand that. Going back to that, what are some things that in your studies so far, when it comes to criminology, that you've learned that's impacting you in the moment?
Just this, I'm really interested in the sociological side of crime, why societally people feel that they have to do crime. And to me, it's really much societally influenced. We have these labels that associate who's a criminal, but I think, it's that label. So I'm doing a project at the moment about what defines crime, and we're looking at the different definitions of crime. This is my first project in criminology, so I'm absolutely not an expert. But I think it's really fascinating to look at different definitions of crime, especially the sociological side on, we are given these labels and what defines criminal behavior, right? And, some behavior, if we talk about environmentalism, how some corporations are able to get away with polluting the environment, but that's not criminal behavior. That's just violating some rights or act, right? They're able to get away with that behavior because they are a powerful corporation.
Right.
Right. But then you have people who who are not very rich, who don't have access to basic necessities, yet they're deemed as heinous criminal. But in fact, let's look at the impact. Both are not right, don't get me wrong, but let's look at how behavior is labeled in society.
Completely agree. Shauri, friend, I'm so thrilled to have you here on the show. As we're kind of wrapping it up, how can people follow you? Where can they buy your products? And thank you again. And I'm sure I'm going to gush and tell you how amazing you are 5 more times, but where can people find people find your products?
I have an Instagram page called Moraka Menstrual Cups. I have a Facebook page. Follow me on Twitter. I'm starting a Twitter account.
Yes.
And thanks. And my website is on my Facebook and Instagram page. So feel free to share any of my posts. Follow me, right? Because I'm really trying to build a platform of young people and activists and people really interested in making a change. I'm actually, speaking of, I'm also starting a podcast. So I hope everyone can follow me on that journey. So my podcast is called Once Upon a Feminist, and we're going to be talking about the various organizations in New Zealand help students and women access services. So our first season is reproductive health and wellbeing. So I'd absolutely love to have support with that, especially from Crossroads Podcast.
Absolutely.
Would absolutely follow you on your journey, because I do listen to a few of your podcasts.
Thank you.
And, I think a lot of people in New Zealand would be really keen on listening to your podcast. So I'd be more than happy to promote you, big fan.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. I figured those couple of listens that I have from New Zealand must be from you. Must be from you. Because I'm like, because again, I'm sorry, bringing it back to Lucy Lawless. I'm always like, oh God, what if Lucy Lawless is listening to my show? And then I can't handle it. I freak out. And then I'm like, okay, that's enough, because I can't deal. It's too
maybe I'll be your Lucy Lawless, like a menstrual cup Lucy Lawless.
I really was like, this is like 7 degrees of separation. Like, like everybody knows Kevin Bacon or something. You probably don't. Do you know who Kevin Bacon is?
I do. He was from Footloose.
Oh my God. And you know Footloose.
I do know Footloose. It's my mom's favorite, one of my mom's favorite movies. Kevin Bacon. He was an X-Men First Class. He was I actually went to California, and there was like we were talking about 7 degrees of separation, and like one of the guys, I was an exchange student, and one of the men I was staying with, their son was a musician, and he's like, oh my God, I touched Kenny Loggins, and then he touched Kevin Bacon, so 7 degrees of separation.
Maybe. I mean, everyone somehow is like connected to Kevin Bacon. So I feel like, I'm just saying. So Shauri, thank you so much for being here. Going to do that. So as we are closing out, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you again at the Crossroads.